Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, 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 Fit Mama. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you for being here. Today, I have a treat in store for you. I am interviewing someone who, if you don't know her yet, you will know her now. Her name is Dr. Shalini Bhat. Dr. Bhat is a dedicated functional medicine professional with a decade of experience in the health and wellness field. I was introduced to her online, and actually it was a weird roundabout way that she ended up training my cousin, and it's just a small world, but you meet people right when you're meant to. And she's the founder of the Movement Boutique in Toronto, a next generation wellness clinic and designer of programs that are designed to help people achieve optimal wellness through moving, feeling, and looking better. Talk about perfect fit with us, right, Fit Mama? She's designed a workout method, a treatment method using acupuncture, fascial release, and nutrition, and now has 3 functional medicine programs, including her 21-day Clean Gut Detox. After going through her own personal health challenges that Western medicine wasn't able to remediate, she developed a passion for functional medicine, which we go into in this podcast and explain what it is. And eventually she became a certified practitioner to help others be empowered through achieving their own health and wellness goals. At her private practice, her treatments focus on providing patients with a roadmap to moving, feeling, and looking their best. She works with people who have been told they are normal as classified by their doctor. We've all been there, and you're like, I know something is not right here. And those who are looking to take their health to new heights, cutting through all the noise and those trends on the internet and bringing our patients the most relevant info for their body, mind, and microbiome. We are going to talk about all this and so much more. She's so freaking awesome. Come hang out with me and Dr. Shalini. Let's get it done. Enjoy. Hey, Fit Mama. I am here today with none other than Dr. Shalini Bhat, functional medicine practitioner. Hey, Shalini.
Hey, Jen. How's it going?
It is amazing, and I am so excited to have you on this episode. I have been following you for a while, and I love what you do. I love what you're about, and I am loving that I get to introduce you to the Fit Mamas today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. The admiration's totally mutual, and I'm excited to get in touch with this audience.
Absolutely. You know, the Fit Mamas are an incredible group who are all about self-love, self-care, really being aware and mindful of not only how the physical things like fitness and food impact them, but also how their thoughts about the food and fitness and how their emotions about the food and fitness. And it's really well-rounded in that way. And I know you subscribe to that same mentality. Am I right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yes. So maybe tell us a little to start here. I'd love to know, Dr. Shalini, what is a functional medicine practitioner?
So, a functional medicine practitioner is typically a physician of some sort. So, whether they're naturopath, chiropractor, medical doctor, or osteopath, and then they've gone to do extra training for functional medicine, and they will use lifestyle, natural medicine, foods, sleep, stress, all the good stuff, mindset to kind of resolve why someone is suffering from something. So usually in allopathic medicine, we get a what diagnosis and we'll get a pill or a surgery to kind of band-aid the symptom. But in functional medicine, we go, why do you have the symptom? And then we do all the things that I mentioned to sort of recalibrate the body back into balance to let it thrive again.
So good. I mean, so, it's so common that we just try a Band-Aid solution when we have something going on. Our hormones are off. Let's take the pill,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, without really getting to the bottom of it. And I love that you do that. And I love that functional medicine does that. And it's just a more holistic approach where we know there's other things going on. So just to approach it with that 2-dimensional thing only, it really is kind of selling ourselves short, would you say?
Yeah, I think where allopathic medicine went wrong, not wrong, but kind of we started using it in the bad way, is that it's totally life saving. And we need the body to be cut up into its certain organ and fix it when something's really, really bad. But when symptoms are just a little not life threatening per se, we're like, oh, what's happening in this one organ? And we dial down and zoom in so small, forgetting that the body is really meant to zoom out and that everything's connected. So you can actually, treat a rash or eczema from treating the gut. It doesn't have to be by treating the skin, for example.
Oh, and this is so refreshing to hear. And I know our listeners are thinking the same thing. I mean, it's nice to know that sometimes you're not crazy for this thing always coming back. It doesn't matter what cream you use and what thing you do, there might be something else. So,
Totally.
Dr. Shalini, how did you get into this? How did you start to kind of explore functional medicine? What was your avenue in?
So, my avenue in is that growing up, I was all around the allopathic way. My father's a surgeon, my uncles are doctors. So, I was around that kind of Western way of practicing medicine, but my family's also from India. So, I was also exposed to Ayurveda and herbal medicine and spirituality and yoga and the Eastern side of things from a very young age as well. And I was like, there's got to be some middle ground in here. So when it came my turn to go to school, I did kinesiology because I was obsessed with the body and like just need to know more about the body because I have one and I want to make it function better. And then I went to chiropractic college after university, knowing that it was a route I could get a doctorate, I could still see patients, I could work manually with them rather than a 5-minute pill thing didn't really jive with me personally. So I like the detective part of it. And so I started my chiropractic practice doing acupuncture and fascial release work, so soft tissue work. And there would be people, I was blessed my practice is in a pretty wealthy area. So they were just coming back for treatments. And there would be those people that kept just coming back because, and I'm like, ugh, there's still like this piece that's not getting better. Like, why? Right. So you do the manual stuff on them. They're feeling great. They leave the office, but then they're eating those same foods. They're not sleeping. They're living that same stressful life. They've got toxic relationships around them, da, 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 da. And then they're back in your office and like, oh, my thing hurts again, or whatever the pain ache that they were experiencing was. And so I realized, okay, there's so much more to this. So concurrently, I was also going through my own health issues like bloating and fatigue and low immunity. Like I had a cold all the time and ended up going to a functional medicine like yearly meeting thing with IFM and then started doing all my functional medicine training to get at those pieces that the patient was maybe blinded in for, again, the nutrition, the sleep, stress, mobility, movement, supplementation, all the rest of it, so that I could have this holistic, true inside out, outside in view of the body and how to help people from those perspectives.
Wow, wow, wow. And I love that it's just a deep dive, right? Like you seeing that, on the surface, their neck feels a touch better. But then when they get back into their life, that's all coming back. So it's a symptom of a greater issue. And I love that you dissect into that. Now, you mentioned one thing that I'm really curious about. I mean, I am a huge, if you can be a fan of something, I've never been a fan like, rah, rah, this baseball team, basketball team, until the Raptors won. Then I was like all over,
Yeah.
right? I'm like,
Bandwagon.
I watched the Raptors before they were Raptors. Like, but other than that, I'm not really a fan of things other than teams, but other than this one thing. And this one thing is called the fascia.
Yes.
Okay, the fascia intrigues me like no other. And when I start researching the fascia online, I wrote about it a little bit in the Love Fit Mama way, but in my next book, I'm bringing more into it. And every time I investigate more of the fascia, which I'm going to have you talk about, it's like it just takes me down a route where I have 10 more questions for every one that I answer. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, this stuff is the spider web, the connection of every single thing. Fascia, for those of you that don't know, is the white coating connective tissue around every single one of our muscles, muscle fibers, even like each individual muscle fiber, bone, it encases organs, it encases every single thing that you can possibly imagine in your body. So it has a really crucial role to address. I mean, even there's research to show emotional links to certain areas of fascia will get tight. And these sleeves, which when we were in medical school, you're dissecting away bodies and you're dissecting away the fascia back when I was in school. Whereas now we're knowing, as they dissect, it's like, oh, this fascial sleeve or this fascial line actually travels so far and connects in a very ornate pattern. So one example is people think of fascia plantar fasciitis. So that word is coming from there. So I know a lot of people have probably had that or heard of somebody who has it. That's an example. That plantar fascia, so that white connective tissue on the bottom of the foot, actually goes behind the heel, up the calf, up the hamstring, through your butt, up your back, to the back of your neck, and over to the front of your forehead on your face. So that one fascial sleeve travels that entire way. So, when we talk about our muscles, even in fitness, we're going, okay, work your hamstrings or work your glutes or, work your back. And there are certain fascial techniques that we will show our patients where you don't even need to fascial release the area that they might be feeling, but it might need to be some release somewhere along that chain that they're experiencing their discomfort. And another really cool thing, if we're talking about Eastern and Western medicine, is that if you were to superimpose the Chinese medicine acupuncture points map on a body, literally, it's so crazy. It honestly follows the fascial lines almost to a T. It's so bananas.
Oh, you're going to have me investigating another whole day or two.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And it just, I've gone to practitioners before where, I'm like, oh, this is hurting here in my neck or whatever. And they're poking around on my foot. And I'm thinking like, is this person a little, woo-woo, what's going on here? And then I'm realizing, holy, the release, like I had a physical trigger release somewhere in my upper body when she was manipulating something in my legs or feet. And I was going, oh my gosh, what is this? And, I really love that, you work with this with people and that you kind of highlight these areas in this interconnected wovenness of everything. And I feel like it really has a place to kind of highlight that this, our bodies, these really complicated systems, they really do sort of make sense at the end of the day, but they're all interconnected. So while we can't just parse them apart and say, okay, if your ear hurts, do this, we can, but then what's affected, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting to me. Now, once you started going further along this functional medicine route, so you saw that people were still having, the issues keep coming back up, how did you take it that one step further in your practice?
Yeah, totally. Good question. When my patients were having that kind of chronic pain that was coming back when they were stepping out of the, getting better, mobility is good, great, awesome, they're feeling great, go back into their life. I know this is your message too, is that the actual stuff that's moving you forward is the small stuff that you're doing every single day. So it was for me, I mean, I was really lucky that people were like, oh, you did this training? Okay, now I want to try that with you also. So they were super open to it. And through functional medicine testing, we would see if there was any stealth infections in the gut, for example, that was creating excess inflammation in the body that would go and sit in that vulnerable area for them, for example. Or we would look at, like with women, for example, who might have just had a baby or are in that postpartum period, if your adrenal glands are shot and your body's in that sort of alarm state, your body's not in the healing mode because it's, thinking it just needs to survive. So it's not diverting resources to healing, tissue repair, cell regeneration. So knowing which a kind of survival mode or thriving mode the body was in and turning it toward the right direction. That was another thing that we started to do. So just,
That's hugely
figure,
impactful, I bet.
yeah, figuring out where everybody's path would lead them back to, because, I've had people who they will leave my office, they go back to their terrible relationship where they live, and just even being around that energy of that human who you aren't leaving, but you live with and you're sharing that roof with, and that energy's in there, you're sleeping beside them or in the same house as them. Like, so even something like that can trigger all of these things. So it's
I
just
felt my
about,
body recoil when you're explaining that. I'm like, oh, who would want to be in that environment a day after day? Most people are in that situation and they feel like they can't necessarily leave. So like you said, it ends up taking a toll on the physical body.
exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Something so cool about fascia is like, so Tom Myers, he is a kind of big king of fascia, so to speak. He's written a book called Anatomy Trains, which is a really cool book about these fascial sleeves. If anyone wants to do some further reading, it's a pretty dense read. And he says that you can even tell when somebody is low mood or a little depressed or anxious. They have a tighter disposition, like their shoulders are rounded forward, their neck is pushed forward, their jaw's a little bit clenched, the eyes are a bit squinted. Like, so the fascia actually responds. Whereas if you picture you've just had a happy day and you're kind of bouncing and you're upright and your posture's nice and you're kind of bouncing along and your fascia is really fluid. So it really does respond to the various emotional states that we put it in.
Totally. And I can really see that tightness, that kind of almost that clenching feeling that
Mm-hmm.
happens. It's like that natural recoiling when someone's going to attack you, right? Or
Totally.
life is very attacking. I think that's natural that you would have that almost like a contraction of your body, which totally makes sense. So, you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to dive into, and that's to do with that sort of postpartum period where we're in that survival mode, right? And that's kind of almost part and parcel with the postpartum period because it's like, you hear all the things about what could go wrong and you have to keep this baby alive and you're worried and are they gaining weight and are they feeding right and the breastfeeding and the whole things. So it totally makes sense that we're sort of in this survival intense fight and flight situation. So how do you particularly approach that, Dr. Shalini?
So, just to circle back to that, what we were just talking about for 1 second about that tightness, and this is a thing that goes back to even postpartum, is our bowel habits. So, fascia completely encases our gut, our entire colon, our bowels. So, when we're tight and anxious and stressed, like a lot of people experience constipation, right? And that's the same kind of like tight disposition. And then to your point on the postpartum period, there I feel like is this checklist of things that mom wants to get done, get started on, get going on.
Yeah.
And it might be scrolling through social media and looking what this girl's doing or how she lost her weight or what she's doing to feed her baby or not. And so there's a lot of external cues coming at us in that period. Also, because we are carrying a newborn around all the time and probably home for a lot of that initial phase. So there's opportunity too. But I think just teaching that woman, no matter where, I mean, I see women who are 4 years postpartum and we're starting there, for example, but to learn how to check in. So a lot of the patients I see are kind of years out of that period and they're kind of waking up as their kids are going to school and going, hold on a second here. I don't feel like I once did. I have no idea how I got here, but they're just kind of like waking up from that days and being like, wait a second, I'm more tired than I used to be. I can't recover as easily as I used to. I'm hanging on to that last. I mean, you and I aren't about pounds, but just, they're not, their body isn't what it once was. And, they might be starting to show cycle irregularities or stuff like that. So it's about actually noticing them as they're happening and being able to real time them, like noticing, am I more constipated all of a sudden? Okay. So constipation is a tight disposition, right? Okay. So where can I relax? Where can I loosen up? How can I take deeper breaths to get out of that survival mode? So you and I both know that the nervous system, our automatic or autonomic is what it's called, but I think of it as an automatic nervous system. If we are like shallow breathing, if we are not sleeping well, we are in that fight or flight mode you were talking about. So, kind of overriding that mechanism, one of the ways is to take way deeper breaths, to slow down for a second. So, it's just about finding that conscious mix of those small steps that we can do in that period to move our health forward. But I say, number one, ditch the checklist, ditch it.
No, it's you know what? I think it stems and I'm guilty as charged with this as well. I was there, and as a new mom, it's just that you have these expectations of yourself, right? Or of what it should look like, and you want it to go a certain way. And we can extrapolate that in life in general when we want things to all go a certain way and follow how we think they should be, and they just don't, right? They just don't. And I think it's so hard for us to surrender in that way, take those deep breaths and slow down and ask ourselves, how is this working for us? And I just really value that you talk about that with your patients and in general and online, because people need to hear it multiple times. I know I did, and like
Hmm.
loud and like booming and like inflicting pain upon myself in order to hear it, right? And it's just so, I really have a passion around bringing this idea to the Fit Mama community that is about that slowing down and that becoming aware and mindfulness. And, one of the things that I love about what you do, Dr. Shalini, is you have the movement boutique. And I'm a huge, huge, huge proponent of movement. It is one of the Fit Mama foundations. I'm so, so, so a mover myself. And I know that moving always, always just feels good. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is the Movement Boutique and how did you create that, do that, all the things?
So the Movement Boutique is my private practice in Toronto. And where the name comes from is it's meant to be a movement. So it's a movement in new age medicine. It's a movement in new types of movement because I curated all my favorite ways to move in the studio and the classes that we teach. And I curated all my favorite, natural beauty treatments like facial acupuncture that we do, the fascial release. So it's sort of my curated favorite things when it comes to treating the body from the inside out or the outside in. So, if we're going back to that, my typical patient, and we just were talking about slowing down and figuring out inside what you're feeling, is because, again, that typical patient who comes in kind of woke up from that postpartum fog and is like, hold on, I don't feel the same. They sometimes can't articulate it. So, what does it mean to be 20% more tired than you used to be? It's not really a thing, right? So you go to your GP, you're like, I don't feel like I once did. And the GP's like, great, what prescription can we give you for that? Or they might be like sending you to various specialists trying to label you with something just on this wheelhouse or rat race. What I love is that the Movement Boutique is a place where women can come when they feel something a little bit, like maybe they found us because they were experiencing a little bit of low back pain. So they came in through our fix channel. So that's our soft tissue therapy, our fascial work, and our acupuncture. Maybe they heard about us because they wanted a natural beauty treatment for their face. So they came in through the cosmetic side. Maybe they started functional medicine with me because, again, they couldn't articulate to their GP what was up. And I was like, all right, let's just talk about this. And they're like, yeah, I am a bit more tired, or I can't think as clearly as I once did, or I'm not as flexible as I once was. And it's ways that they can articulate in themselves how things have changed. It's really funny when you look at the difference between men and women. When I sit down with women and I'm like, all right, what's going on? And a woman kind of like goes inside and thinks and says, and this and this. And she's got a whole bunch of stuff. And I'll ask a man when I'm starting with him, what's going on? And the man's like, well, I'm healthy and, I'm this height and I weigh this much. And people would say that I'm fit because I play these sports. So men sometimes see themselves from the outside in, and women a lot of times are actually pretty good at articulating inside out. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of my clinic is, and then people will just cross using all the different services that we have. Maybe they started taking a class with us and then they were like, I like this way of moving. I'm going to try this, try that. So, they just get in touch again with their body from the outside in or the inside out.
Hey, Fit Mama, I want to interrupt this episode just for a quick reminder to check out the Love Fit Mama Way. If you haven't already checked out the book online, it's available on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. It is a very comprehensive book for you where I explain how the transition into motherhood is a window of opportunity to transform the core of your being as a human and a leader. I go into detail about what you can do physically to rehabilitate your deep inner core after pregnancy and childbirth. It doesn't matter how many years postpartum. I emphasize that being a fit mama all starts with love. And what goes into the embrace, nurture, and enjoy framework as I outline this journey for you. Because it's all about transforming from the inside out, focusing within, not without. Cultivating those healthy habits that stick, that are for you, is what this new generation of fit mamas like you really want. I lay out and I dive into the Fit Mama foundations along with all the relevant tools, new ideas, recommendations, scientific backup, and intriguing perspectives that will leave you feeling empowered Fit Mama and determined to connect deeper with your own core. Regardless if you're male or female, with or without kids of your own, you will find this book thought-provoking and practical in moving you toward true love and reverence towards your body and your life. I guarantee it, Fit Mama. Reach out. Please let me know how you like the book. It's only $4.69 on Kindle, and you have a Kindle app for free on your phone. If you don't, grab a Kindle. They're awesome. You can read it right on your computer, though. And the paperback is only $24.95. I honestly know that it's worth it. It is over 10 years of research and pretty much 20 years of experience, plus my whole life. But it is a wealth of knowledge. And I know this makes a really, really great gift for any of those pregnant or new fit mamas out there. I guarantee you're going to feel a breath of fresh air from reading this book, and sharing it with your friends and family is giving love right to them. I talk all about healing your seal and doing the pearl pull-ups to bring yourself back into a place of equilibrium in your core, a nice connection, connecting with your deep inner core, how to rehab, what it all means, and it's super, super clear and simple. So check out the book, get it on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. And back to the episode. Have a great day, Fit Mama.
So cool. And is your office in a fitness studio type of setup, or?
I built a studio in it. Yeah. So there's, we've got treatment rooms, we've got a kitchen, and then we've got a big studio space.
Oh, awesome. Well, I mean, I follow you on Instagram, and I remember clearly one day looking at Insta stories of my cousin who lives in Toronto, and there you were in the background. She tagged me. I'm like, you're working out with her? Like,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm like, oh, what a small world. I have no idea even how she found you. And I was like, she's coming on the podcast. So small world. And so how many clients do you work with there? What kind of facility do you have that you can accommodate?
So, I have 2 practitioners working with me who are completely trained by me in the style of fascial release and acupuncture that we do and that I love. And then myself and another one of the practitioners also practice functional medicine. And then I've got a Pilates teacher and a functional medicine coach. So that's kind of our team. And we service Toronto for local people, but we also do virtual visits on the functional nutrition coaching side and on the functional medicine program side as well.
Oh, awesome. So tell us more about that.
So to work with me, it's a 9-month functional medicine program that I do with people. And why I did that is exactly what you and I were talking about, in that, when you start with something and you're kind of like, all right, here's an appointment, you sit with someone, you get a rapport, and then you're like, you just want to vomit all kinds of things to do at them because you want to give them the most value in that one meeting, and then they may or may not take it and they may or may not come back. So I was like, you know what, I'm done with this model. I need just like an overarching program so that we can take our time and we can tweak, and we're all about customized protocols for our patients, meaning, someone might actually need to know what to eat because they aren't sure, but someone else just might have a mindset where they're not, loving and honoring themselves enough to actually do the thing. So everybody's going to have their own path to recovery, building resilience, building their wellness. But we go about it through not only functional testing, but looking at their habits, their lifestyle, because no 2 routes are going to be the same. So that's sort of the program, that sort of the more intense one-on-one longer program. But then what I did is I was like, oh, there's so many people that would benefit from the stuff that you find yourself saying over and over, which I know you do as well. And so I created a 21-day Clean Gut Detox program, which is basically the stuff that I say on repeat to most of my patients.
Yeah.
So over a 21-day period, it's, a Facebook group, it's nutrition, it's lifestyle, it's stress management, there's meditations, there's workouts, there's fascial release techniques, there's beauty tips, tricks, there's all kinds of support from my team. So that's a really fun program, super affordable. It's supplements in it as well. So that's sort of, I guess the distilled down version of my big program.
I love that. And that's the clean gut one. Now,
Yes.
I want to go into that a little bit with you because we hear about gut stuff all the time here, anywhere you look with regards to health, and I'm not saying it's trendy by no means, but I'm happy it's moved in that direction because it's like called, advancement, which is a beautiful thing. And I love that you really kind of focus on that for this specific program that you do. And, I'm seeing it more and more that there's pretty much nothing that is out there that really dives deep, deep, deep into you without going into the gut. Would you say like it's really the foundational place to start?
I think it's foundational because we have control over what we put in our mouth ultimately. So I think it's the easiest, and a lot of things happen in the gut that we don't or didn't necessarily acknowledge or realize. Like, for example, the microbiome project was only in 2000. And we understand now that those microbes have a massive role to play for manufacturing our vitamins and our minerals, making sure that we're absorbing the stuff from the foods that we're eating, learning that our neurotransmitters, like 95% of our serotonin, up to 95%, is actually manufactured in the gut, not in the brain. So, serotonin is our feel-good neurotransmitter. A lot of people with low mood, for example, they might go on an antidepressant, which is an SSRI, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. But I test people and their serotonin levels that I test, which are pretty reflective of just their amounts of serotonin, are fine. And so if that patient had gone necessarily, don't get me wrong, there are situations absolutely 100% where those meds are necessary, especially if someone is really far down the slope. Absolutely. But for the most part, when someone's just like, yeah, I'm kind of in a low mood, and the doc's like, all right, here you go. Sometimes we just need to address the gut and like readdress that serotonin metabolism, seal the gut lining. So the other thing is we have the vagus nerve, which plays a massive role in the gut brain connection. So, when you see someone that's like sketchy and then your stomach goes into knots, that's that connection. So that's there, that nervous system, that enteric nervous system is still happening there. And then we've got our immune system, a massive immune system in our gut. So the gut is really its own mini microcosm or ecosystem, if you will. And I think that's why it's been so brilliant in the last couple of years of people focusing on the gut as you said, a foundational piece, because it just is its own ecosystem. And if you address all those issues, look at in mainstream, there's so much autoimmunity. Well, we've got, again, like I mentioned, a massive immune ecosystem in our gut. So there you go. You can address the gut first, right? And then, as I mentioned, we do have quote unquote control about what we are physically doing to our gut to an extent. So I think that's why it's so cool to address it. And then, what's unique about me and marrying my two things is, again, the fascia around the gut. So teaching people about the different valves between the different parts of the small intestine and large intestine and how to do release on those for themselves, or, stomach massage, or using acupressure points to help with that as well. I'm actually rubbing my belly as I'm doing this.
Well, I'm about to rub mine. I'm just thinking this. I'm like, oh my gosh, how's your old gut doing?
Someone said to me a few weeks ago, they're like, only pregnant women rub their belly. I'm like, oh my God, I rub my belly all the time.
I do too. And you know what? This really rings true for me, the gut thing. And I love learning all about the gut. And I love learning about the, as you mentioned, enteric nervous system, because this is literally that, the vagus nerve, all these things, and the interconnectedness just blows my mind. But I've always been someone who's a very nervous type of belly, if you will, sensitive. It's like, oh, if I'm somewhere new, I'm not hungry. If I'm if I'm too busy, I'm not hungry. If someone said something that bothered me, or I said something that I shouldn't have or didn't want to, or I have this thing in my belly and I can't eat all day. you know? And
Yeah.
so the more I investigated how our nerves are connected with, how we're feeling in our gut. And then of course what we eat is related, and our choices that we make is so related to how we feel and all the things. It's just the interrelationships with it all. It's just so beautiful because you can see how things are all linked. And I think for women, there's the old hysteria, and it's like, oh, women are just hysterical about this or that, or their hormones are all over. And, especially with pregnancy and postpartum, we just think, oh, I'm fit to be tied. But at the end of the day, it's all part of it. And when we start to learn about it and embrace it and do the things like following a 21-day program such as yours, or really learning about your gut in a way that you understand how come you're always getting a cold, or in my case, how come I always was bloated and had gas, and how it came back to the fact that when I was a kid I took so many antibiotics because I had ear infections, and then I had a heart thing, so I had to take antibiotics every time I went to the dentist, so this perpetuated. I mean, we each have our own story in that way, and I think highlighting that and opening women up to that as you do, Dr. Shalini, I just think it's so valuable. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and thank you. Like, even, and this is one of the things I said again with the movement boutique and like what you do, we can get at, like, don't ever let anybody tell you that there's only one way to change something. I mean, just as you said, you think something and your gut has that feeling, right? And that contraction, that tightness, and that will change the hormones and enzymes and things that are secreted within the gut, right? Like that changes our chemistry within our body. And those things are super powerful. So it might, just like you said earlier, you might hear a message a million times. It might come from so many different people. It might be that one word that person worded it in that actually resonated with you. So I've taken in my program, I've created visual things, I've created audio things, I've created tactile things so that people, their styles of learning are all touched on. I'll repeat things in different ways. I'll have them try different things. Maybe moving their body helps stretch and retone their vagus nerve, which is what helps their gut, right? So we're teaching them so many different tools, because the only thing I'm obsessed with is when people actually learn something and move it forward. So they're all tools that people can use going forward. And maybe it's a manual thing on themselves. Maybe it's humming or chanting. Maybe it's a meditation that they do. Maybe it's a food that they eat. Maybe it's a supplement that they take. So there's so many different avenues to healing, and everybody's different.
Yeah, so true. And I like that you said that everybody is different. That's such a hard thing to remember. And like you said, with social media, and we scroll and we go, oh, what's Jenny from high school looking like after she had her, right? Like, if we're sitting there going, oh man, it takes us down this rabbit hole. But you know what? Jenny from high school is totally different than you, right? And I think when we start to just be okay with things, one of the really beautiful things that I find starts to happen, and I know for me, when I kind of take myself down off a ledge, when I'm starting to go down one, if I do, is like that calming of the nervous system, right? Going back to what you said, is slowing down and taking deep breaths. And I think we look for something more exciting than that all the time, and we can go join this CrossFit gym and burn all kinds of calories and diet and lose weight and look like something on TV. But at the end of the day, that's actually just not realistic, nor is it healthy, nor is it where we're at or anything. And I think now people are starting to appreciate their own uniqueness a little more, which I love. And especially with more talk about body positivity and, people understanding the pelvic floor and postpartum period where, they needed to run off and go sprinting too soon because they're actually going to hurt themselves, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you see people wanting to come back to exercise full out, hardcore, right after they have babies?
Yeah, for sure. The way that we work out, though, it's actually not that, like, it's pretty safe just because we are all doctors who are teaching it. So it's pretty safe if they are coming back that soon. But
yeah, not to the movement.
yeah, yes, yeah.
Get me back fast so I can go out and run up.
Oh, yes. No, it's not okay. And to your point, like, what actually moves the needle isn't doing this hard thing for 2 weeks and push, 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 push. what moves the needle is the things you can actually sustain consistently. So even if that's the smallest thing, well, to the person, like going for a walk every day for 20 minutes, like it's the things that you can sustain that are the only things that are going to make a difference. I
Yeah.
find a lot of people burn out if they do that way that you're talking about, like that quick and juice cleanse and this, that, the other, like then it's done. And now what? You still have no habits that will move the needle forward.
No, and more than likely, you're craving all the things you didn't eat for those 2 weeks, and you're just going to binge on them and gain any
Totally.
sort of issues will come back with a vengeance, likely, as well as other things. So, I love that you do Pilates with your clients and that you open them up to that, because for me, I found Pilates to be one of the most eye-opening movements, really, where I didn't realize how interconnected my body was and how weak my core was and how I wasn't really using it, even though I could lift really heavy weights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really common one, actually, for sure.
Yes. And you do a lot of core work with what you're doing, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time for sure. And the core work that we do, remember the top of the core is the diaphragm. So this is another thing we were talking about, that survival mechanism, and that when your body is deep breathing, you can't actually be in your fight or flight mode, which is great because that's where we're healing, detoxifying, digesting, and reproducing, which are the things that we want. So we can only take as deep a breath as we have movement and mobility within our thoracic spine and our rib cage. And the fascia that's encasing that, like, I swear one day this sounds so crazy, but one day when I started doing breath work, I was like, I can't inhale. Like I would like take a breath, but it could only go so far. And I knew there was more to like that I could have more mobility, but I didn't. And I was like, oh, I can't even like deep breathe. So it's about actually teaching someone to stretch, relax, and be able to contract their diaphragm and their intercostal muscles, which are between every single individual rib, and the upper rib cage, which tends to just be the traps climbing up. So it's about repatterning that and opening that and creating that mobility there so that someone does have the opportunity to take an actual deep breath that would physiologically put us back into that parasympathetic or that rest, digest, heal, detoxify mode.
And the rebuilding too, right? And I love that you just said that. And that makes so much sense to me. And this is really what I want to highlight here from that is that what you're suggesting here, and what I'm always kind of shouting from the rooftops, is this idea that it's sort of knowing what to do and approaching it with that perspective that you're feeling good and you don't have to go and push yourself into a no pain, no gain scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you are postpartum, you have a toddler or other kids, you're breastfeeding or you're feeding and you're up all hours, you're in that fight and flight. Your nervous system is on the fritz, and breathing calmly while you're sitting there, with your baby or lying and sleeping in, those are actually the things that are getting you further ahead, not stressing out your body more with a workout. Would you agree?
Absolutely. That you're hitting the nail on the head, because the minute you're, stressing the body even further, I tell my patients it's like a bank account. If you just had a baby, your body might somewhat be depleted just from lack of sleep and, everything your body's physically going through and physiologically. And so it's not the time to spend, it's the time to save. So to your point, you want to do the nourishing, rejuvenating activities that will build your savings. You don't want to be spending even more, because then your back can go out if you aren't bracing and using your core properly, and then you can get a back injury or worse, and then you're left for even worse, right? So a slow recovery.
Yeah, been to that one and don't want to go back. And I don't want anyone else to go there when I know that I can come and help them in some way to become aware. So thank you for helping me do that today, Dr. Shalini.
Mm-hmm, same.
Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with today? Anything parting words, things that you want to inform them on? I love so many things of what you talked about. I could go back and talk about a million of them. But what stands out to you that you'd like to finish off with today?
I mean, again, what I just said about moving the needle forward with consistencies. most of those things are pretty boring and they're actually free. So we want to actually spend our money on the fancy this expensive supplement, this, whatever, because we look for external solutions to our, not issues, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And,
Or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of these things like getting out in nature, that's free. Taking a deep breath and retraining your breath is free. Drinking water more is free. So a lot of going for a walk, moving your just what you have is free. Going to sleep on time is free. So I just want to debunk that, sometimes wellness seems unattainable for people, or I can't do this or that. It really, the basic things really are accessible. And if people do want to hang out with me a little more and get some more of this type of advice, you can, on our website, we have a 2 weeks to a better you program, which is all of these things and how to implement them. So it's not just drink more water. It's like, here's how you can go about to get hydrated properly. How can we get the water into the cells properly if that's not happening? What type of water should we be drinking? How much should we be drinking? What does that look like? So I encourage people to head over to our website, themovementboutique.ca, and sign up for that program. It's 2 weeks and you just follow the thing of the day that whatever you keep, I give you 14 things. So even if you're going to keep 5, it really will help push the needle forward.
Oh, that sounds good. And that sounds like something for someone who's already doing the things, right? But maybe they're just not working because something's blocking it that they don't even realize, right?
You know what?
That sounds like a deep dive.
I created my 21-day Clean Gut Detox. Like, I created all of the stuff and I do it. So we do it 4 times a year. And I actually get the emails every day and I go through it and I do it. And it's my own stuff. Like, I wrote it. And every time I have an aha moment. So you and I, like we're saying, you need to hear it so many times. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I can like reintroduce that. Or like, so me and you who talk about it all the time, we can even use reminders. So even the person who is doing the things, maybe there's a new way to do it or a new way to think about it or something else that might make life easier too, right? So that's a super fun trip also, is relearning and re-reminding and all that.
Oh, the reminders are key. And, I had this epiphany kind of a few years ago when I remember I picked up a magazine, and I used to love magazines, Women's Health, and I used to love all these different magazines, workout magazines, and, all the others. And I just at one point realized, looking back on the magazines, I was like, they say the same thing every month in these. The one from 1998, and I'd go, what? Shebang, that's today's episode. Like, it's amazing. They say the same thing over and over with a bit of a different story, a bit of a different this, a little updated picture. But it's so much in those foundational pieces that we hear them over and over, because it seems like it's not sexy to just go to sleep. But I want to bring sexy back to these things. And I think we can do it one little thing at a time.
Same. We're so aligned on that. None of the stuff that's free is sexy anymore because no one's making money on it.
I know. It's crazy. It's so crazy, but we got to do it. We got to do it. You know it. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Shalini. You're amazing. You are amazing. I will link up everything in the show notes, all the stuff we talked about, all the links to get to you and some of your awesome YouTube videos. I freaking love your YouTube. You're adorable.
Oh, thank you.
That up as well, and people are going to be loving those. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Jen. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your podcast, because now I'm a fangirl too.
Thanks. Talk soon. Have a great day, Fit Mamas. Namaste.
So how was that? Right? I mean, she is such a wealth of information. We barely touched the surface of what she knows. I tried to pose questions that I thought you might have, and really to kind of dig deep into how you can be more responsible for your own experience here as a human. And when we realize that our fascia is intertwined with every cell in our body, and that what we eat and what we do and what we think about what we eat and what we do does play such a huge role. And talking with Dr. Shalini, I mean, it was evident. She is so passionate. She has so much information and education to share with you. And, I know she's someone who she really gets the job done with her clients. She has some programs online that you can check out, and they're all going to be linked up in the show notes, Fit Mama. So if you really want to get down to business and feel better, I know she's your gal. I mean, listen to her, right? She's super cool. And she's honestly so knowledgeable between movement and everything that goes on the inside, as this is the work in to your workout, Fit Mama, the inner size for your exercise. So I hope you had a great experience listening and learning. And if you have any questions, reach out to her, reach out to me, pass this on to someone else who needs this podcast today. Please, you're going to do us all a favor. And if you can, I would love a review. It takes about 3 minutes of your time. Head over to iTunes or wherever you're listening to this and give us a review. Tell us how you're liking it, what you've learned, how it's benefiting you, and just share the love, because it really helps us out and helps this keep on going, keep on growing. Have a great day, Fit Mama. So much love to you. And thank you again to Dr. Shalini Bhat for being on here. You are a warrior girl. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye-bye.